Hi, I'm Nancy Wittenberg with Coldwell Banker.
And I'm Carla England with eXp Realty.
And we're here today to talk about the purchase contract. So let's get started.
Okay.
All right, so the first page, it actually says attention buyer, and that is buyer and seller, just so you know. But why do you think they have this page that has little checkoff boxes?
It's to give the buyer an overview of what's going to be in the contract and where they may want to spend special attention on the things that are important to them. And so the inspection period is very important, and by contract it's 10 days, but that can be changed depending on the particular needs. And it's important that you hire a qualified general home inspector. If the HVAC is of great importance to you, you need to have that separately inspected.
Or if it's like maybe 5 years or older,
Yes,
it's a good idea.
yes. And you might want to think about mold inspection. If there's been past water damage at any point, a pest inspector, a pool inspector if there's a pool, and possibly a roof inspector if that roof is older than 5, maybe 8 years old.
Sure. All right, you also want to get information on insurance. So what it's going to cost, because that is going to contribute to your full payment at the end of the month.
Yeah, and so then when you apply for your home loan, I recommend strongly having already been pre-qualified prior to going out and looking at homes. But you should get your realtor chosen before that, because your realtor knows some very good local lenders that they can refer to you.
Absolutely. And the next thing is title commitment. Now, it's a really lengthy document. It's got a lot of boilerplate words in there. But you definitely want to make sure that you look at it. If you have any questions, please ask. That's what we're here for.
And we'll review the title commitment too, but basically you're responsible for that.
And CCNR, so if there is an HOA, then you definitely want to make sure that you know what the rules are, because there might be some surprises or something that you don't feel comfortable with and would rather not buy the home because of the HOA.
Yeah, and the CCNRs will be ordered by the title company after you go under contract. You'll have 5 days to review those, so you don't have to worry about if you get those back within the 10-day inspection period.
Absolutely. And a pre-closing walkthrough. My preference is to do it 4 days prior to the close of escrow, so we have time to cure if needed. But any of the repairs that are supposed to have been done, we go there to make sure that they were done in a workmanlike way, and also that the home is substantially in the same condition it was as when you first saw the home.
Yes, and went under contract.
Yep.
And you can have that inspector come back with you. Say there were a lot of repairs that were going to be made. It might be to your advantage to go ahead and do that, and they'll usually give you a discount.
Sure. All right, so now we're going to start with the purchase contract. Section number 1. As you'll see, it starts with the buyer's full name, seller, the premises address. Let's talk a little bit more about full purchase price.
Yes, that's an important one.
Yeah, that's how much you're buying the home for. All right.
It's what you're offering.
Yeah, oh, well, yes, that is a better way of wording that. Okay, earnest money.
Typically, earnest money is going to be 1% of the purchase price. That's not written rule, but that's just a typical benchmark.
Sure. And you can go higher, you can go lower, but it strengthens or weakens your offer. You shouldn't probably, in most cases, go too high because that money is at risk. And we'll talk about that further.
Yes, and how you can get it back.
Or lose it.
Yeah, and the earnest money is going to be held by the title company. And they're the ones that are going to, manage if that goes back to you, the buyer, or if it's going to go to the seller if you breach the contract.
Yes.
As a buyer.
So they're supposed to be a neutral third party, is basically how that works.
Perfect.
All right, now if this is an all-cash sale,
then we skip the entire financing section and there won't be an appraisal. Doesn't mean you can't get an appraisal. You can within your inspection period. And then if you want to cancel because you think the value isn't there based on what the appraisal comes back, you could still cancel in the inspection period.
Exactly. All right, so close of escrow, that means the day it records at the county. It does not necessarily mean the day you can move in, because it usually doesn't record until later in the afternoon, but that's the day you can get the keys.
Correct. And a lot of people sometimes think it's the day they sign. Absolutely not. The day it records.
Yes, you should be signing it before that.
Yeah.
However, when push comes to shove, you can sign it the same day, but that's not recommended.
Early in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, so you should be delivering a cashier's check, not cash and not a money order, to the title company.
And it says you can do a personal check. The drawback to a personal check is, say you get into the home the first couple of days, 3 days, you realize this isn't the house for me. Something's really wrong. You cancel. Well, the title company is not going to release that money for another 7 days. It takes up to 10 days for that money to clear, and then they will then refund it.
Yep. All right, so possession. You absolutely will not get possession until it closes escrow and it's recorded. You cannot get anything, you cannot get the keys or access to the home before that. So for the pre-closing walkthrough, for the home inspection, air conditioning, pool inspection, all of those, one of us will be there. That's how that works.
Yes, your agent will get you in.
Yeah.
And where it says, keys, all the existing keys, garage door openers and things like that, when you're making your offer, sometimes it's a good idea to put in there you want 2 garage door openers, or have your agent ask, how many garage door openers are there? How many keys will there be? Do you have a mailbox key? Is there more than one mailbox key? Because these things often come up at the recording, and suddenly the buyer's like, there are no garage door openers. Or there's no mailbox key, or what mailbox is mine?
Yeah, those types of things, definitely. All right, so Addenda Incorporated, one of the things that we always add is the market conditions advisory, because the market could go up or down. There's different kinds of addenda that's listed here. It will be very much applicable. Which ones are going to be used will be determined on your particular home, whether it's lead-based paint, if there's HOA, etc., etc.
Yeah, and right now we have a COVID-19 addendum, and a lot of brokerages are requiring its use because so many people are getting COVID.
Yeah, and who knows how long that'll still be around.
Yes.
All right, let's talk a little bit about fixtures and personal property. Some of the most important things are, I would say, ceiling fans. Built-in appliances are dishwasher, stove, if the microwave is attached, those all stay with the sale.
Right, and sometimes the washer and dryer will stay with the sale. The inspector's not going to inspect that washing machine because it's not typically considered an appliance. And the refrigerator, same thing. So if that's important to you, you need to run it.
Exactly. All right, so things like garage door openers, the seller is supposed to leave those. However, if they don't, because they don't have them for whatever reason, then it will not be given at the sale. Some other things, and I always find this entertaining to have a conversation with my clients, is if you have a TV that's mounted on the wall, the mount stays, but you keep your TV as the seller.
If you don't want that mount to stay, take it off before the photos get taken and cover the holes, or else put in big bold letters on your listing that it does not convey, that the wall will be repaired after the removal of that. Spell it out. Make sure it ends up in the purchase contract.
Absolutely. So things like shutters, awnings, blinds, curtains, anything that covers the window is considered to stay with the home. So if you love your curtains, remove them before the photos are taken and before the listing goes on, or we need to make sure that it's spelled out in the contract that it does not convey. All right.
Okay.
Well, things like, speakers, video doorbells, automated thermostats, those all stay with the home.
Yeah, those video doorbells, your Ring doorbell, take it off if you think you're going to take it to your next home. Okay, so now we're in the financing section. As you'll recall, if it's a cash sale, you'll skip this entire section. If not, then you definitely want to know with your interest rate, you'll have gotten that from your lender.
An estimate, not until your rate's locked, it won't be a definite.
Right. And and you absolutely do not want to buy any big ticket items during your financing period, during the period of the transaction, because that can change your
debt to income ratio. It can change your ability to qualify for a loan. Do not buy anything for the house until after you have the keys in your hand.
Records.
Well, you've got the keys in your hand, it's already recorded.
Yeah.
Right. Then you can go shopping, then you can do whatever you want, but do not do it ahead of time. Don't change your employment. You can go up the food chain, but don't
stay within the same employment bracket. Like, don't change
Exactly.
career paths at that point. And talk to your lender before you do anything like that.
And if anything happens outside your preference or your control, tell your lender immediately.
Yeah. And that loan is another one of the contingencies where if the loan falls through by no fault of your own, you did everything fair dealing, then you will get your earnest money. That is one of the contingencies of the contract.
Sure, and that protects you. So even if it's the day before the close of escrow and your employer no longer is in business, you can get your earnest money back, and that would be taken care of.
What about the appraisal?
Actually, wait a minute. I wanted to talk about the pre-qualification.
Oh, okay.
So one of the important things that you need to do before we go looking at houses and write up a contract is get pre-approved by a lender. There's actually a set document that the lender has to fill out, and it's actually something that you sign, and it is absolutely necessary to get this ahead of time because it is a required addendum with the contract.
Yes.
All right.
And so, okay, now we're going into the...
Well, let's talk a little bit about necessary funds. So if you're going to get gift funds, talk with the lender. There's rules that go along with how that works and what needs to happen to that money, how long you need to hold on to it. So make sure you've disclosed all of that. Don't be transferring money from one account to another right before the close of escrow. Have it all taken care of and organized ahead of time.
Okay. Okay, then you have your appraisal contingency. That's another contingency where the buyer can get their earnest money back if the home doesn't appraise for the purchase price. Or you can negotiate back with the seller, and the seller could reduce to get it down to the purchase price, or the buyer could come in with extra funds to cover that appraisal gap, is what they call that.
Sure, and I also wanted to mention the loan status update. So one of realtors, we do a lot of things behind the scenes that you're not going to know about no matter how many transactions you've done. The loan status update is one of them. Most lenders will provide it weekly, although they only need to do it once, but we will ask for it multiple times. And they literally say it's a checklist of exactly what they've accomplished so far in the transaction. It's literally a full page of different items that they need to do. We receive that, both the buyer's agent and the listing agent receives it, and they double check to make sure everything's moving forward. Now, it's not a guarantee that the lender won't have a hiccup, but it's certainly just a double check system to make sure things are kind of working the way that it should be. So title and escrow. Basically, this is who's the title company is actually put in there. Well, it's a good question.
Yes,
and I laugh because
question.
The listing agent a lot of times has a favorite nearby title company that they work with. So sometimes they'll put it on the listing, gee, please use this particular company. But as a buyer,
because the buyer is going to be covered by that title, it's really up to them who gets it. But if you're in a multiple offer situation, do you really, really want to, put in somebody besides who the listing agent prefers?
and
You have to really think about that.
in all honesty, what they do, the title commitment, the insurance, it's pretty much the same one company to another.
Unless
You know?
it's out of state.
Oh, yeah.
One of my sellers, it was $1,000 over what what my net sheet was if they would have used my title company.
Section, what is the seller property disclosure statement?
It is where the seller tells you, the buyer, potential buyer, everything they know about the home.
Okay. We also ask for an insurance claims history, which shows up to the last 5 years that they've owned the home, if there's been any like massive water leaks or any homeowner's insurance claims.
Yeah, what's FERPTA?
Oh,
Foreign
FERPTA.
sellers.
Foreign sellers, yes. There's definitely a section in here that basically says that if somebody is a foreign person, the taxes will be taken out of their proceeds and held by the title company and then sent to the IRS.
And the buyer needs to make sure that happens.
Which is really difficult because how are you going to know unless the title company tells you? And so that's always fun right there. There's also the lead-based paint. So if the home was built on or before 1978, before 1978,
yes,
then there could be lead-based paint on the premises, and so there's a little disclosure for that as well.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Changes during escrow.
If something changes, it needs to be in writing and both sides must agree to it.
Yep.
Otherwise, it
Possibly
stays
the
the
seller's
same.
disclosure needs to be updated. Say something happens to the house, a tree falls over during a storm. You need to update that seller's disclosure.
Absolutely. All right, so warranties. I thought everything was warranted with the house.
No, it comes as is. It's up to the buyer to do inspections of everything that makes a big difference to them.
Yeah, if it matters to you, or even if it might matter to you, you need to have it inspected. You need to ask about it. Otherwise,
inspect what you expect.
let's talk about the due diligence period.
Okay.
Now, it's usually 10 days, but when would you want to change that?
Well, in this multiple offer situation, a lot of times you're seeing shortened inspection periods. I don't recommend that myself. I've seen them even take it out completely. I totally don't recommend that.
Well, and I would say if you needed to be more competitive, 7 to 8 days, I think is fine, as long as the home is in decent condition.
Yeah.
But never not inspect a home.
Yeah.
You need to have some professionals in there. Even if you're a general contractor, get a neutral third party to go in there and look at their laundry list of things. It's not an absolute guarantee that the home will be in perfect condition, but it's certainly the best process that you can go through to make sure the home is in as good a condition as possible. And if it isn't, if there's something that's not working, then you've got a neutral third party with their report that you can then present that to the seller and say, please fix these items because they weren't working.
Inspect what you expect.
Love that. Okay, all right, so square footage. Every once in a while there will be a difference between what's showing in the county records versus the size of the home. When you get an inspection, when you get an appraisal, the appraiser will go out and estimate it. Do two appraisers have the same square footage? Yeah,
It's amazing.
It is amazing because when you're measuring the outside of the house, but it's about livable square feet, so that takes out some walls and that sort of thing.
Takes out the garage.
And the garage. So unless the garage is livable,
Yeah.
and it's no longer a garage, then it's a room. But anyways,
It's true.
yeah. So
So what about the sewer connection?
sewer's always a lot of fun. In your typical subdivisions, usually it's not a problem. But if you have a home that's built, maybe it's a little older or it's on a lot of land, half an acre and up, then I would definitely suggest looking into this because you should never make an assumption that there's a sewer when there could be septic, especially in certain county islands and different parts around the metropolitan area.
Yes.
There are areas where sewers are still regularly in use, so we don't make assumptions on that.
True. Very good. Swimming pool barriers, are they required?
Well, that's always fun too, because every city has their own rules about that, and a seller can sell a home without any barrier. However, if you buy the home, you're now responsible legally if anything were to happen. So you definitely want to make sure that you're following the letter of the law. And that information is provided to you in a buyer advisory. So you don't have to worry about where you look for that. that information will be provided.
Right. Okay, so inspection period notice. Let's see, what's that? Buyer disapproval.
So all right, so basically at the end of the inspection period, you're going to fill out a buyer inspection notification and seller response called the BINSR. And on there you have 3 options. You can accept the house as is, ask for repairs, or say forget it, I'm out, and end of conversation, you get your earnest money back. So if you don't stop the transaction, if you don't cancel it, then it continues to move forward, is basically where this part talks about. So unless you say something, you're going to be expected to purchase the home at the
So if the seller says, no, I'm not repairing any of that, then what do?
You have to decide.
Now it's on the buyer. You accept that seller's response, or you cancel the contract and get your earnest money back.
All right, so home warranty. A home warranty, I always refer to this as kind of like a car warranty. If something breaks inside the home, typically they'll fix it. Now there's usually a fee for that, $65, $75, whatever it might be, whichever the company is. That decision is yours if you want one. So, and you need to, it actually goes in the contract. If you haven't decided ahead of time, we can put to be determined, but we need to know as soon as possible if you want one.
Right. And you can decline one in the contract. It's a negotiable item. You can ask the seller to pay for your home warranty. Say the house is pretty old and, old stuff. It might be reasonable to ask the seller to transfer that home with a home warranty.
Unless it's a really competitive market for that particular house.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to talk about the remedies section. Cure period. If something is not going correctly, if the time frames weren't respected throughout the contract, then you can cure. Basically, if that happens, we'll definitely walk you through it to make sure that everything is done correctly.
And they have 3 days. Whoever you cure has 3 days to perfect the cure. Correct the cure, I should say.
I like correct the cure. That makes sense. Then we also have a section on additional terms and conditions. What would you put here?
I would put, in this crazy market, either an escalation clause or a appraisal gap clause, or both. This is where you could reduce the number of days. Well, you wouldn't do it here.
So this could be just if you're going to keep the curtains that are not supposed to convey. It would be a variety of different things, and of course it's going to depend on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
So a lot of contracts, that part's actually left blank.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about risk of loss of the earnest money.
Okay, so what would make it possible for you to lose your earnest money? Okay, you go out and you buy that big Dodge Ram pickup truck and you no longer qualify for the loan because of your debt to income ratio. It will not be the lender's fault that you did that, so you would lose your earnest money over that if you couldn't qualify.
Definitely.
There's other things.
Yes, there's a variety of different things, and of course we can take that on a case-by-case basis. If anything significant happens to you in your financial situation, at home, relationship, whatever it might be, please feel comfortable to share that with us, and we can help problem solve and do everything possible to save your earnest money.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, we're your advocates.
Absolutely. All right, so days of the contract, it actually counts calendar days. So on those 10 days inspections, it will include a weekend. Now, inspectors may not work on the weekends, it depends, but it doesn't, we can still usually work with that. Even if we had a smaller inspection period, it's really not that big of a deal, typically.
True.
All right.
Okay, cancellation. Who can cancel the contract?
Great question. Can the seller ever cancel the contract?
No. It would have to be by mutual agreement only.
Yes. Only the buyer can cancel, and the buyer can cancel at the
inspection period.
If the seller disagrees,
shortage.
if the seller agrees to everything in the inspection period, if they want to ask for any repairs, then the buyer can't cancel.
True. Yeah, if they give them the opportunity to agree, then they can't cancel, obviously, there. But if the appraisal's below the purchase price and the seller doesn't drop the price to meet that,
or meet somewhere in the middle.
Actually, the buyer could even cancel and not give the seller the opportunity to reduce the purchase price.
Sure.
So that just opens up negotiation again.
Definitely. All right, so then the very last page basically is where the realtors are listed and where you sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, the realtor's listed as who their agency is to.
Sure. In other words, who they represent. Whether we represent the buyer, the seller, or both. It's actually on here.
Yes.
Because that matters very much.
Yep. Thank you very much for watching, and like and subscribe.
Still both of us, we can't do that.
We'll put it on both of our channels.
Anyways, thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a wonderful day.
Yes, we enjoy doing this for you.
And like and subscribe.